Hi everybody, welcome to the first Pro MMA betting podcast of 2019. We're going to pretty much jump straight into the card. It's going to be a hectic year. The schedule's looking jam-packed already. We've got a little bit of respite over the coming weeks, but once we get into February, I think through to July, there's basically 2 or 3 weeks that we get off, so it's going to be ferociously busy. Please check out our Twitter at Pro MMA Betting and the website for betting subscription packages www.prommabetting.com. We also offer live betting packages now as well. I'm going to be doing it in an audio format from UFC Brooklyn, so that basically when I'm placing my live bets I can tell you guys. It doesn't really work. I tried it last show by typing the bets out, but it doesn't really work because I instinctively want to put my bet on, so by the time I've put my bet on and get the message to you guys, the lines have changed and so forth. So I'm going to move to an audio format for the next one. Absolutely killed it on live bet over the last few years. I'm constantly being banned by the books for my live betting prowess, so please jump on board. It's pretty much guaranteed money. Very rare for us to lose money on a live bet show, and over the course of a year you're going to earn a lot of money, even factoring in the odd show where we don't make any money or we might lose a bit of money. We're going to win a lot more over the other shows. It's the closest thing to free money I've ever come across is live betting on MMA. So that's a service we've got up and running there as well. So there's packages on the website if you want to have a look. But if we jump into this card, first fight on the card is Randy Brown against Chance Recountree. So this is a fight with two, I'd class them both as lower level welterweight fighters. I actually bet Belal Muhammad over Chance in Chance's UFC debut. From the tape that I could find on him, I thought Belal was going to be a level or two above, and he was a couple of levels above him. These two fairly similar in height. Randy's 6'3", Chance 6'2". Randy Brown has a 78-inch reach against Chance's 75, so 3-inch reach advantage. Chance is a southpaw. Randy fights out of orthodox stance. We can't really read much into Chance's stats. He's only had one fight but in the UFC, but Randy averages pretty much 3 significant strikes a minute, absorbs getting on for 2.5, goes for 1 takedown every 15 minutes, 41% accuracy, 77% takedown defense. Chance was taken down multiple times by Belal Muhammad, who's a decent wrestler. He actually showed decent get-ups against Belal. Did get his back taken, I think it was towards the end of round 3, but Belal's reasonably good at taking people's backs. But yeah, he showed a reasonable get-up game, but the takedowns did come quite easy for Randy. If we look at Randy's career, he's been in the UFC a while now, 3 years. He's got a 4-3 record. Guys he's beaten are Matt Dwyer, Eric Montano, Brian Camosi and Mickey Gall. I mean, 3 of them guys are no longer with the UFC. All 4 of them are at the lower spectrum of, if you're looking in regards to UFC caliber, they're all at the lower spectrum of UFC quality. They're not great opponents. If you've got any chance of staying in the UFC, you need to be beating those guys, and he did. He's lost to Michael Graves, got wrestled in that fight. Michael Graves is a very solid wrestler. It was only his 2nd UFC fight. You know, it's a completely different stylistic matchup here against Chance, so can't really read too much into that. He lost to Belal Muhammad. Belal was a very good fighter, very solid fighter. He gave Belal a solid fight, gave him problems on the feet. Belal had to rely pretty heavily on his takedowns ultimately. The first round Belal won. He landed a lot of leg kicks, basically leg kicked Randy in round 1. Round 2 and 3 were far more competitive on the feet, and Belal, as I said, did have to resort to using his takedowns. He lost to Nico Price. A very bizarre fight, this one. Randy was actually looking pretty good in this fight. He hurt Nico towards the end of round 1 on the feet. Was on top in round 2. It was looking like he was going to win the fight. And he got knocked out with hammer fist from, well, Nico was on the bottom and Randy was on top. Those from memory, it was a bit of a weird position on the ground, but Nico was on the bottom, Randy was on top, and he knocked him out with hammer fist. So, I mean, Nico does hit hard, but that's one of the more bizarre knockouts you're ever going to see. And Randy was out cold as well. We hadn't seen any chin issues prior to that. I don't know whether it was just got hit on the sweet spot, or do we need to be concerned about Randy's chin? I mean, I'm saying he hadn't shown chin issues before, but if you look at the UFC record, or look at his fights even, he's not really been hit. Bilal Muhammad was landing more low kicks than punches, and no one else has really landed too much on him. So I'm hoping it's not a sign he's chinny. Like I said, Nico does hit very hard, but hammer fist from the bottom can't generate much power, so that is a slight concern. But Randy's he's a rangy striker. He's got a good jab. He can throw the right hand. Perhaps he's a little bit non-committal with his strikes. He did hurt Nico Price though towards the end of round 1. I think that was from a knee though, if I remember rightly. So yeah, he's got okay striking. His takedown defence is it's pretty decent. I mean, Bilal did get him down, but he was also stuffing Bilal a lot as well in that fight, and he did give Michael Graves problems getting him down at first. I think Graves ultimately got a takedown in round 1 off of a caught kick, but he was stuffing him prior to that. And Randy's pretty good in the clinch as well. He does spend a lot of time clinched up in the fence, and he does normally win that position. He was even having success against Michael Graves in that position. I think a lot of the Matt Dwyer fight was spent there. Some of his other fights have been spent there as well, but he does look pretty solid in the clinch, seems pretty comfortable there. So yeah, I mean, he's a lower level fighter, Randy. I don't think he's ever going to be a contender or top 10, even maybe not even top 15, but he's the kind of guy that's going to beat the lower level guys at welterweight. But I do think he's going to beat the Chance Renkin-trees of this world. As I've already said, Eric Montano apparently had molds poisoning in the fight with Montano. I remember I actually bet Randy Brown in that fight and looked like he was going to lose until he pulled out the submission in round 3. So I don't know how much to read into that. Did have a good performance against Kamosi. Bilal he was competitive against. Mickey Gall, not sure about his fight IQ in that fight, but re-watching it, he did win it pretty comfortably. I imagine if you did bet Randy in that fight, you would have been really nervous for all 3 rounds, because he did kind of play into Mickey Gall's wheelhouse for the 3 rounds. But re-watching it, he comfortably won the round 1 and round 3. And then Nico Price, who is a better fighter, I mean, as I said, he's lost to the better fighters he's faced, but he was winning that Nico fight until that bizarre KO. So I think Randy has gotten better. I do think he's better than Chance. Chance, short notice debut against Bilal, got massively outstruck in that fight despite having a pretty big height and reach advantage over Bilal. Just got teed off on all night. Bilal mixed takedowns in. Wasn't particularly impressive performance. I did watch as much tape as I could when I bet Bilal over him. I did do a bit of a recap for this fight, but I just remember not being very high on Chance at all, so I didn't go as deep as I did previously, because I do remember not rating him. I mean, 2 years ago he won a split decision over Jake Lindsay in Bellator. Jake Lindsay is not a good fighter. I can't find that fight anywhere, but split decision, that's not a great sign. He had a war with Brian Monahan, who at the time I think was 6-5. This is about 18 months ago. Gets hurt in that fight, ultimately stops him in round 3, but way too competitive for my liking. He beat Justin Patterson in a rematch. He lost a split decision to him getting on for nearly 3 years ago. Had a rematch with him just over a year ago, submitted him in the first round. He got a takedown. Patterson tried to scramble up and he locked in a choke. He then got a quick rear naked choke win over Chris Harris, who isn't a fighter that I'm too familiar with, but he's lost, including the Chance fight, he's lost 3 of his last 5 You know, he's beating journeyman basically, and then he didn't look good. It was short notice, but didn't look great against Belal. He's got some kind of connection with Alliance. I'm not sure if he trains there full time, but he does some training there. I can't find anything on social media with regards to him. And Eric Del Fierro wasn't in his corner. I don't know if that means anything, but it wasn't in his corner in his UFC debut. But I don't think Chance is UFC caliber. He's 31 years of age as well, 32 even now. I can't see him making any strides really at that age. It's very unusual for someone to make improvements at that age, especially at welterweight. So Randy, although I don't think he's the greatest fighter or will be the greatest fighter, I definitely think he can defeat fighters of this kind of caliber. I think Chance is of the same kind of caliber as your Brian Camozzi's, your Matt Dwyer's, your Mickey Galls. I think he's in that kind of realm, and Randy has beaten them. He's lost when he's taken a step up against your Belals and your Nico Prices. So I do see Randy winning this fight. Chance hasn't been stopped. Randy isn't the biggest finisher. He stopped Montano, caught him with a nice choke. Camozzi, kind of, I don't know, it was a bit of a bizarre stoppage here. Caught him with a knee, didn't look too heavy, and Camozzi wanted out, but I don't know, maybe he cracked an orbital bone or something, who knows. But yeah, I don't think Randy's the biggest finisher, and Chance does seem pretty durable. Belal did stun him, and Belal's not a big puncher, but I think Randy's going to take a decision here. If we look at the betting odds, he's around -270. I think that's reasonably accurate. Randy maybe isn't the most trustworthy fighter, so you wouldn't want to bet him as a heavy favourite. It was around -230, I think. Went up to -250. Currently sitting at -270. I think that's around right, and I do expect Randy to win a fairly comfortable decision here by pretty much mixing in some clinch work on the fence and outstriking Chance at range. So I'm going to go with Randy decision. Next fight is Belal Muhammad taking on Jeff Neal. Jeff's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Fights out of a southpaw stance. Same height. Jeff has looked pretty spectacular in the UFC. I've been very, very impressed by him. His stand-up seems to be very high caliber. He's very fast. He cuts angles well. He's got heavy hands. Absolutely wrecked Frank Camacho. Now I know Camacho isn't the best fighter in the world, but he's a tough guy, he's a warrior, and Jeff Neal just owned him the whole time that fight lasted. Looked real good. It's just way too fast for him, way too accurate, way too powerful. Absolutely bossed him. He looked good against Brian Camozzi. Quick stoppage in the first round there. Was lighting him up on the feet as well. On the Contender Series, he beat Chase Walden up at middleweight. I think Chase has a wrestling background. Chase got a takedown against the fence. Jeff got up pretty quick and just knocked him out. He's looked really impressive in them 3 fights. I did watch his fight with Kevin Holland. I didn't watch it capping this fight, but I watched it when I was, I don't know if I was capping a Kevin Holland fight or a previous Jeff Neal fight. And from memory, Jeff Neal won the first couple of rounds, good combinations, but he slowed down and got stopped in the 3rd round. So slight concern there is cardio, because Belal is a cardio machine. That guy doesn't get tired. He will keep coming for 3 rounds. So if this does get out of the 1st, 2nd round, could it get competitive? Possibly. There is a question mark there. Jeff Neal did look fine against Frank Camacho though. It only went 1 minute into round 2, but he was still moving fine for me. I remember the commentators, I can't remember if they were saying that Jeff was slowing. I don't think they said that, but they did reference something about Camacho coming forward now and getting into the fight or something, and I just didn't agree with the comment at all. It was Jeff was in complete control, and footwork wasn't slowing down to me. He looked perfectly fine. So we'll see if this fight does go the full 3 rounds. It would be useful to see what Jeff's cardio is like, because Belal will push the pace for the 3 rounds. So the other question mark I have is his takedown defence. It's pretty unproven. I've not really seen it. Chase Walden got him down against the fence up at middleweight on the Contender Series. He got up quickly. Camacho attempted a takedown or two and that was pretty easily stuffed. So they're the only question marks I have is how good is his takedown defence? How good is he getting up from the bottom? From what we've seen, from the little we have seen, it seems pretty solid. But we don't have a full idea yet. But his stand-up is pretty spectacular. He trains out of Fortis in Texas, who have a number of fighters now that are in the UFC. They seem like a pretty legitimate camp now. They've got a good set of guys there, so he's got good guys to train with. So he's facing Belal Muhammad, who's been in the UFC a while now, proving himself to be a pretty high caliber fighter. He's won 5 fights in the UFC now, 5-2 record. Only lost to Adam Jabane, who he got knocked down by 3 times in the first 2 rounds, but kept getting up, kept coming. Won the 3rd round. Adam Jabane had gassed by the 3rd round. Well, he was probably gassed in the 2nd round, in fact. If he didn't get dropped in the 2nd round, that 2nd round was reasonably close. But he did get dropped and he lost the decision. He then beat Augusto Montano. He got knocked out very quickly by Vicente Luque. And since then he's reeled off 4 wins in a row. He's beaten Randy Brown, Jordan Mean, Tim Means and Chance Recountree, who we just discussed. So, I mean, you look at the calibre he's beaten. I mean, Jordan Main for me isn't the fighter he was. Randy Brown, as we've discussed, is a lower level guy. Tim Means seems a bit of a mental case sometimes. Like last fight, he seemed switched on there, and then against Belal, he just kind of went into sparring mode, and they had a bit of a sparring match, which is perfect for Belal. He's going to thrive in that kind of environment. So I'm not sure how much to read into that fight. It was close. And then Chance, he tuned up, but Chance, as I've said, I don't think he's UFC level. The 2 guys he's lost to, Jabane and Luque, are UFC staples. I mean, much like Tim Means is, who he did beat, but Vicente knocked him out quick. Jabane knocked him down 3 times. So, do we have chin concerns? I mean, he's never been knocked out besides the Luque fight, but he's kind of got a bit of a big head, Belal, and he doesn't move it too well. It is there to be hit, and Jeff Neal, if this fight stays vertical, Jeff Neal is going to connect on him. And besides Luque, Jeff Neal is the hardest hitter he's faced. Belal is all about pressure. He's all about high volume. He's all about mixing in his takedowns. Now, he does have decent takedowns. He does mix them in fairly well. Used them in most of his fights. So this is, if this fight was going to be stand up for 3 rounds, I'd be very confident in Jeff Neal. But he does mix them in, and he does have high fight IQ. Belal against Jordan Main, he used a really takedown heavy approach. He said the strategy against Tim Means was to wrestle him, but he felt comfortable standing, so didn't really go to his wrestling in the end. And I also think he probably realised that Tim Means has pretty solid takedown defence. Randy Brown won the 1st round on the feet, started getting more competitive on the feet in round 2, so he went to his takedowns in round 2 and 3. Now, he doesn't, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have a wrestling background. If he does, it's not a high level wrestling background, but for MMA times his takedowns pretty well, they're decent. His top control isn't the best, but he is quite good at scrambling to guys' backs when they try and get up. He took Randy Brown's back, I think he took Jordan Mine's back, he had Chance's back in round 3, took Augusto Montano's back, so he is pretty good at timing that back take when they try and get up. So Jeff Neal does need to be careful. I did notice in his Contender Series fight he did stand up with his shoulders pinned to the fence, which is the correct way to do it to stop your back being taken. So if he does get taken down, I expect him to scoot back to the fence, shoulders on the fence, stand back up that way to stop his back getting taken. And he needs to be conscious of that here, because otherwise Belal will try and take that back. So this for me just comes down to, can Belal get the takedowns? If he can't, he's going to be lit up on the feet, I think. I think he's too hittable. Jeff is also a southpaw. Alan Jabane's a southpaw who dropped him 3 times, dropped him with a straight left, dropped him with a head kick. Jeff Neal has a very fast left head kick. We saw it knock out Camacho, but you can see it earlier in the fight being used. Really gets it up there quick. Blistering left hand, cuts angle as well. I really like his stand up. So I'm going to go Jeff Neal here. I'm going to say he's going to knock Belal out, but this will give us a good idea of where Jeff Neal is at, unless he gets a quick knockout. Because I would like to see him defend some takedowns, see what his get-ups are like, and I mean, I'd like to see it go 3 rounds really, just to see that cardio tested as well. Because as I said, Belal will be in the fight. If this goes 3 rounds, Belal is gonna make us a hard fight. And round 3, I could see Belal taking round 3 if this does go 3 rounds, which then would leave Jeff Neal needing to take round 1 and 2. So it does set a high pace, Belal. So yeah, Jeff needs to be careful here, but I'm not going to say he's a gasser just off of the Kevin Holland fight, but I would like to see him go 3 to get some questions answered here. But I'm going to go Jeff Neal knockout. I think Belal's too hittable, but hopefully this will answer some questions for us on Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal's betting price is currently -170. I think that's probably about right. Maybe it could come in a little bit because, as I said, Belal's well-rounded. He could pose some questions here, and Belal does tend to be underrated by the books just because he isn't a particularly spectacular fighter, but he's got good fight IQ, which is something that not too many fighters have. He is clever in there, so I definitely wouldn't like to see that price go any higher. As I said, there are question marks, but I'm going to go for Jeff Neal because his stand-up really impressed me. So Jeff Neal KO. So last fight on the Fight Pass prelims, if it is still the Fight Pass prelims. I'm not really sure what's happening at the moment with the new TV deals and so forth, but I'm assuming these are still Fight Pass fights. Got Dennis Bermudez taking on T. Edwards. Dennis is moving up from featherweight here to the lightweight division, which is an interesting move for a guy that stands at 5'6". He's at a 6-inch reach disadvantage to T. Edwards, so quite significant reach disadvantage. He's 4 years older, and Dennis Bermudez, pretty high volume, lands over 4 significant strikes per minute, absorbs over 3. Takedowns nearly 4 per 15 minutes, 38% takedown accuracy, 82% takedown defense. I'm not going to look at T's figures too heavily. They're all going to revolve around his last fight really, so I don't really want to take that into consideration. But we've basically got 2 wrestlers here. I believe T. Edwards has the higher level wrestling background. He also is going to be the bigger man here. He's a couple of inches taller, and he's definitely the bigger framed guy, with Dennis moving up from 145. Lots of question marks in this fight. T. Edwards has never won a fight past 2 minutes 27 seconds of round 1. Never really beaten anyone of note. The 2 fights he's lost were a decision in only his second pro fight, and last time out, right at the start of round 2, Don Madge knocked him out. So I mean, T obviously hits hard. He's got a good wrestling background. He trains at a good camp out of the MMA lab. But yeah, there's just a lot of question marks for me. I mean, what's his cardio like? How does he fight going into the deeper rounds? I definitely can't bet him just because there's, a guy that's never won a fight past 227 taking on a veteran like Dennis Bermudez. There's just too many question marks for me to touch T. Edwards. Dennis he's coming off 4 straight losses. I mean, Korean Zombie KO'd him, but the Elkins, Feely and Glenn fight, all split decision losses that you could argue Dennis won, and I think I scored every one of them for Dennis. They were close fights, so I don't think one of them's a bad decision, but I mean, that's really unlucky that the decision went against him all 3 times. He must be, it's probably his last fight in the UFC if he loses this. I mean, I'd say for T as well, if T loses, he'll probably be cut. So this is probably last chance saloon for both. T's 28, Dennis is 32 now. I mean, if he does lose this, where's he going to go? Is he going to have the motivation to go to another organisation? You know, this is what stops you betting Dennis as well. Is just where is he at mentally? 4 losses in a row. He's got to be demoralised. He's probably having some thoughts about, what do I do if I lose this fight? Where am I going to go? You see a lot of people say Dennis is chinny. He's only been knocked out twice now. I know he got dropped by a Ricardo Lamas jab and then choked out. I don't think he was really hurt from that jab. But he's only been knocked out by Jeremy Stevens, which was a flying knee. And that fight was a 1-on-1 going into round 3. It had been a great fight. And then Korean Zombie had knocked him out. So I don't know if he's as chinny as we like to make out. But he is moving up here. T. Edwards does hit hard, so it is a legitimate concern. He's at a 6-inch reach disadvantage as well. Dennis normally mixes in his striking and wrestling, but as we said, T. Edwards is a very solid wrestler, so I don't know if he's going to have much luck getting his wrestling going here. I'm going to pick Dennis though. T. Edwards is really green for me. Dennis is a vet. He's got great cardio, Dennis. He will push a pace. If he's in this fight, it's going to be a high-paced fight for 3 rounds. Can T. Edwards survive that? I don't know. He's never been there himself, except for the loss in his second pro fight. So we don't know how he's going to respond to that. So I see Dennis dragging this into deep waters. It's interesting looking at the odds. Dennis is -125. If you look historically at his UFC odds, he's never been this small a favourite. I think he's been a favourite pretty much in every fight. The last time he was a dog, I think, was his UFC debut against Diego Brandao, where he was a pretty big underdog. Since then, this is the shortest price you would have got on him. So I'm not betting the fight. I kind of thought about betting Dennis because of the price, but yeah, for me mentally there's question marks about where he's at. If he's at a reach disadvantage here, he's going to find it difficult, especially at first when T's fresh to mix in his wrestling. I think the wrestling's going to cancel each other out. Dennis has got really good takedown defense, and if he is taken down, he's got good get-ups. So I can see this being on the feet. T does have that power, but is he going to slow down? It's a shame it's not a fight that's live bettable, because if Dennis survived round 1 any signs that T was slowing down, I'd certainly be looking to jump on Dennis. But I'm going to pick Dennis by decision, but a lot of question marks on both guys here, and I think whoever loses does get cut by the UFC, and I don't know where Dennis goes from here if he does lose this fight. So there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders as well. Is that going to affect him? Possibly, but I'm not sold on T. We've only really seen one punch knockout power out of him. Obviously solid wrestling background, but I need to see him put everything together over the course of 15 minutes. So I've got to go with the veteran here, Dennis Bermudez by decision. We've got a cracking fight here. John Hands of Stone Lineker taking on Cory Sandhagen. So there's going to be a big size disadvantage here for John Lineker. Cory's fought at 145 before, moving down to 135. Lineker should be at 125, but he just has major issues making the weight. He's missed weight so many times. So he's up at 135 now. He's only 5'3". Sandhagen's 5'11", so we're talking an 8-inch height disadvantage. The reach isn't as significant as I thought it would be. Sandhagen's got a 3-inch reach advantage. I thought it'd be more considering the height difference, but Lineker does have pretty long arms considering his height, so reach advantage not as significant as I was anticipating. Cory Sandhagen is a dynamo moving forward. Really nice stand up. I really like it. He's got excellent body shots, so this is a really interesting fight, because I don't think I've ever seen two guys in MMA that work the body as well as Cory and John Lineker actually fighting. So this is going to be really interesting. I think though for Cory, he needs to fight this at range. So if he is kind of throwing the body shots he was throwing against Austin Arnett, it means he's in close, which is not where he wants to be here. So it's going to be interesting to see his strategy, considering those body shots he relies on pretty heavily because he's so effective at them. But yeah, he cuts great angles, he mixes things up, he switches stances. Going forward, he's a buzzsaw. Sandhagen, he absolutely tore through Austin Arnett, destroyed him. Yuri Alcantara, he got wobbled by, nearly got armbarred, but he showed true grit to escape that armbar because that was locked in deep, and then showed excellent ground and pound to basically finish Yuri Alcantara. End of round 1, probably could have been stopped. He come back out for round 2, ended up on the bottom again, just got pounded out until the referee stopped the fight. So he's looked impressive in the UFC. Stand-up looked excellent against Arnett. Didn't really get to see it against Yuri. It was more the ground and pound on top, but he was impressive in both fights. Showed grit and showed his skills. What I didn't like in the Austin Arnett fight and at the start of the Yuri fight when he gets wobbled is he does kind of back up to the fence. He is tall as well, so he's got to be very careful with Lineker with regards to using tall man defence, which we've seen is a liability for, or can be a liability for, the guys that are really tall for their weight classes. But Arnett did have when he did back him up, he did land, he did have a bit of success, and that's a worry for me here, because that's what John Lineker's game is. He's all about backing you up. He'll throw looping like body shots to try and trap you against the cage to stop you being able to move side to side, and then he'll unload on you as you kind of hit the fence. So that is a worry for me here, and Lineker does hit very hard. He basically had his jaw broken in the fight with TJ Dillashaw early in round 1. Then he came back, he had a while out, nearly a year out, came back against Marlon Vera. Now, I don't know whether it was first fight back he was a little bit rusty, whether it was Vera's kind of leverages where he's quite tall and big for the weight class, or whether it was psychologically he was worried about his jaw, but didn't look great in that fight. Probably dropped round 3 as well to Vera in that fight. So I remember that after that fight I had a lot of question marks about where Lineker was at, and it stopped me betting him against Brian Kelleher, but he came back and looked more like his old self against Brian Kelleher. Was kind of far more happy and content to drag the fight into a brawl, seemed more willing to get hit. So why did he struggle with Vera? Was it the leverages that Vera has with his height and so forth? Was he more comfortable with Kelleher because kind of closer to his height and so forth? Or is he going to struggle against Cory, but again because of the leverages that Cory has? If Cory didn't show the vulnerabilities he showed against Austin Arnett and even Yuri, where he got backed up and tagged and went into the fence, I'd be very inclined to look at Cory here. But I am going to go with John. I think he's shown a granite chin. Cory is going to have to be very careful when he moves forward. Like I said, he needs to keep this at range. If he's stepping into the pocket to land them brutal body shots, he's in Lineker's wheelhouse. Then I don't think he wants to be up close with Lineker. So I can see Cory trying to fight this at range, using lots of leg kicks, trying to slow Lineker down. The reach advantage, as we said, isn't as significant as I was anticipating, so I just think Lineker's been able to crowd him enough. I don't know if he'll knock him out, but I think he's going to do enough to win a decision. I know John Dodson fight is completely different in terms of Dodson is John Lineker's height and size, frame-wise and so forth, but John Dodson is one of the quickest fighters we've ever seen in the UFC, and Lineker still managed to trap him against the fence and land on him. And as I said, I know the leverages are different here, but if he's still trapping someone like Dodson who couldn't get out of the way, when we're seeing Cory Sandhagen get caught against the likes of Austin Arnett and Yuri Alcantara when he's getting backed up. I see Lineker having success. So as long as Lineker comes in here, fights like he normally does, he's aggressive, he's pushing Cory back, trying to trap him on the fence, then I think he's going to have success, enough success to win this fight. Cory, I feel, he has to fight this at range. I mean, Lineker doesn't push forward 5 minutes of every round, so when he's not pushing forward, Cory's going to have to take advantage and work. He trains at team elevation, so I like the camp that he's fighting out of. He, like I said, moving forward, he's a offensive dynamo. Really, really impressive stand-up, but I just wish I'd seen a bit more of him on the back foot. But from what I have seen, I wasn't in love with it. So yeah, Cory needs to fight a ranger. He can't just go out and do what like a Michael McDonald did or a Francisco Rivera, stand there and just brawl with a guy. He's going to have to try and use the leverages he has to his advantage, keep this at range. But I think Lineker's going to do enough, trapping him on the fence, do enough work that I can see. I mean, I wouldn't even be shocked with a stoppage because Cory's got that long torso. The body shots are going to be there. He's coming down to 135. I don't know how difficult the cut is for him, but he's a big guy for 135. So could it leave him a little bit weak at the body? There is that possibility. So I'm going to be with John Lineker here. It is an interesting fight though. I think I'm going to know very quickly how this fight's going to play out. We're going to see pretty quickly Cory put on the back foot and see how he responds. If he circles out really well away from the fence, then it could be a good night for him. But he's going to have to be able to keep that up for 3 rounds as well. So with his pace slow, if Lineker's constantly backing him up, I don't think it will. He trains at elevation. I think this guy's going to be able to go for 3. So I think we're going to know how this fight's going to play out very quickly. But I am going to go John Lineker. I think he will win a decision, but stoppage wouldn't shock me. But if we do see Cory showing improved footwork when he's backed up, not touching the fence, angling off really well, then this could be a tough fight for John Lineker. But I am going to side with Lineker here to win a decision. Alonzo Monifield versus Vinicius Moreira. It's the next fight. Quite an easy fight to break down. Alonzo, very solid striker, big power. Moreira, very poor stand-up, but a very strong grappler. So he's going to want to get this fight to the floor very quickly. Alonzo's going to want to try and knock Moreira out and avoid the ground at all costs, because Moreira does look a very dangerous grappler. I had done a fair bit of tape on Moreira, watched his last four or five fights I managed to find. As I said, very dangerous grappler. He stopped every opponent. He's 9-1. He's got 8 submission wins, 1 KO win. He fought over it's an Indian MMA promotion called SFL. Now, questionable. 2 of the opponents he beat, pretty questionable level of opposition that he won very quickly in like 1 minute. He did beat another guy back in February who has a 10-3 record. He's a Brazilian. He took a guy called Roman Kopylov to almost to the end of round 3. He got knocked out with 8 seconds left of round 3, and I know Kopylov is a legit Russian fighter. I've not seen the fight, but to take him, I'm assuming it was a 3-round fight, to take him almost the distance is fairly impressive. I don't know how one-sided the fight is. I mean, he could have suffered a tremendous beatdown, but that did catch my eye when I was just reviewing his record. So he also beat Jason Radcliffe, who was a UK fighter I'm familiar with. Jason isn't the best fighter, but did what he was supposed to do, beat him pretty easily. And then he beat John Allen on the Contender Series. Again, quick takedowns, really good submission skills. They got the submission in the 2nd round. So Alonzo, we've seen solid striking from him, very quick win in his last Contender Series fight, but against very questionable opponent. The concern I have is the Daniel Jolly fight 18 months ago on the Contender Series. Dan Jolly got a couple of takedowns on him fairly easy. He ended up getting the win. it was bizarre. It says eye injury on Sherdog. I don't know what actually happened. He looked like he was okay, but obviously he had some kind of eye issue, and so they stopped the fight at the end of the first round. But he was taken down a couple of times there. Now this Moreira's just got terrible stand-up though. His stand-up is not good at all, so he's definitely in danger of getting knocked out by Alonso, who does have very solid stand-up. He's also stopped every opponent in every win he's had, 6 KOs, 1 submission, so the reverse to Moreira. So it truly is an old school fight here, grappler versus striker. The betting line is currently Alonso. He was minus 270, he's minus 255 now. Moreira's plus 215. It's hard to, I mean, I guess I'm going to pick Moreira. Looking at the odds as a better, plus 215 on Moreira. I'm not saying I'm betting him, but he gets a takedown. Alonso's in trouble because this guy does it pretty good on the ground. Is the striking disparity as big as the ground disparity? It probably is. So do not be shocked if Alonso comes out and knocks this guy out quickly. But Moreira knows what he's good at. He will go for takedowns. He did slow down in one fight I saw that went to the second round. That was against the Brazilian guy in SFL, but I think he looked okay against John Allen cardio wise. Or was he slowing? I can't remember, but yeah, there are cardio issues, so it's not the most it's not a confident pick. I'm just going to say Moreira because of the odds, plus 215. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 450, so that's real high. Moreira inside the distance is plus 295. If I was going to make a play on this fight, the only play I'd make, I'd wait for Moreira's submission line, probably get about plus 350. It's the only way I see him winning this fight. I don't think he's got the best gas tank, so I'm not sure he can win a decision. Alonso inside distance is it's minus 210, so him by KO is probably going to be pretty much similar, so that's not playable for me. Yeah, the only play I'd make on this would be Moreira's submission would be a bet I'd consider if I can get plus 350. I'm going to pick Moreira. It's not confident, but I think I've picked every favourite so far. I don't like picking every favourite. This fight for me should be lined closer because I see that although we obviously do start standing, so the advantage straight away goes to Alonso. I do think the striking disparity is as big as the grappling disparity, so I think it should be a bit closer. If you ask me to pick who I think wins, lines aside, I'd probably go Alonso, but as I keep saying, I'm a better, so for me I'm going to pick Moreira, and I will probably look to put something on his submission line at plus 350 because I see that as his only path to victory here. So I'm going to go Moreira submission. In the women's flyweight division, £125, we have Joanne Calderwood taking on the debuting Ariane Lipski. So Joanne Calderwood's been in the UFC for a number of years now. She's not had that many fights considering how long she's been in the UFC first. She made her debut in the UFC over 4 years ago now. She's only had 7 fights, 4-3 record. Most recently she beat Kalindra Faria, managed to lock in a triangle choke in the first round after being kind of blitzed on the feet and taken down early, controlled from top position, but then managed to lock in a triangle choke just before the end of the first round. Before that she was coming off back-to-back losses to Jessica Andrade, no shame in that, and Cynthia Calvillo in what was quite a competitive fight, more through Cynthia's questionable game plan of being happy to stand with Joanne. It was a competitive fight on the feet. Joanne, she doesn't have very good hands. She's quite kick heavy. Cynthia was struggling to get inside of the kicks to land her punches, but if it was a fist fight solely, Cynthia did land the better punches. So Joanne, although she's got an extensive Muay Thai background, or in fact it shows that she's got quite an extensive Muay Thai background because She isn't great with her hands. She is, as I said, quite kick heavy. She's got good elbows as well. She's got quite a useful spinning back fist that she's used a few times. She nearly knocked out Valerie Letourneau with it, but she does rely on her kicks to keep the distance, keep the range. Teep kick heavy. She stopped Valerie with a teep kick, in fact, I believe, or she at least hurt her with one. So that is kind of her main game plan. She's shown herself to be susceptible on the ground, susceptible to takedowns. She is coming off that triangle choke win, so maybe there's been improvements made. She is over at Syndicate now. She has bounced around a little bit at gyms. She was at TriStar for a while. Now she's at Syndicate with John Wood. It seems like she's in a relationship with John Wood as well, actually. So maybe she's settled, maybe she's happy. She's had problems with her weight as well. She struggled to make the 115 limit. I believe she is a 115er. I know women do have difficulty cutting weight for different reasons to men, but she does seem to blow up outside of camp. So, you know, I'm not sure I buy that she's got a bit older and it's more difficult for her to get down to the weight. I think she should be down at 115. At 125 she does look a little bit soft. I think she is more suited to 115, but for whatever reason, and as I said, I'm not quite buying that she can't make the weight. I think it's a little bit of lack of discipline. I think she should be down at 115. But yeah, she's a decent striker. She's had problems on the ground. She doesn't react great to being hit. We saw Courtney Casey, who took that fight on very short notice, having all sorts of trouble very early in round one. Like I said, Kalindra Farrier caught her really early in round one as well, and then hit a takedown. Cynthia Calvillo landed some good shots on her, busted her nose up with her hands. So she's a good fighter, Joanne, but she's 32 now. Like I said, she's not had many UFC fights. I'm kind of not sure where she's going with her career. She's moving up. Well, not moving up. She's had a couple of fights at 125 already, or one fight in fact. I think she then, or two now, with the Farrier fight and the Valerie Letourneau. She went back to 115 after the Letourneau fight, lost both fights, and then went back to 125. And I mean, it wasn't looking good in round one. She was losing the round until she locked up the triangle. So she's taken on the debuting Ariane Lipski, Brazilian fighter, young, about 9 years younger. Very nice stand-up. She's fought most of her recent career on the Polish promotion KSW, where she's beaten not the greatest opposition, but kind of steady opposition. I wouldn't say she's been beating terrible fighters. They've been steady kind of fighters. I guess pretty much the best kind of opposition you can face outside of being in a top organisation like the UFC. She trains, it seems to be a King's MMA affiliate in Brazil. She's been over in America now for a few weeks, and she's actually at King's with Rachael Cordeiro. So I'm not aware of the Brazilian King's affiliate, or I wasn't aware of it before I looked into Ariane Lipski. But obviously good pedigree if it's a Rachael Cordeiro rubber stamp gym. And you can see she has got really nice stand-up, especially for a woman. She's very fast. She's got fast hands. She can smother her work a little bit with her hands. Kind of tries to throw her hands at too close a range sometimes, instead of firing those shots at range. So she does seem to have a little bit of difficulty just keeping the range of her hands, but she's got very good tie clinch, very strong knees. She's got very good kicks as well. She's very fast. There's a big speed advantage for Ariane here. I think Joanne is quite slow. She's not as athletic as Lipski. Lipski's definitely got a speed advantage here. The main concern I've got with Lipski is I watched her last fight, which was a 5-rounder. I also watched her fight with Sheila Gaff and Diane Belbita and Marianne Morales, which were her 3 fights prior to the Juarez fight, but they're all over in the first round, so you don't really get a full handle on how she looks over a 3-round fight. So I saw the 5-rounder with Juarez, and the concern I do have is volume. Maybe she was pacing herself. That's what some people have said to me, because it was a 5-round fight. It's a possibility. But at range, she does seem quite low volume. She's busiest when she manages to punch or kick or clinch her way into close range. Then she'll let go, fire off knees, fire off punches in combination. But at range, I didn't like the volume I saw against Juarez. After watching Joanne tape, and I'd seen a bit of Lipski, I definitely thought I was going to be doing or making a decent sized bet on Lipski. But the volume is a worry, and Jojo, although she is very kick heavy and the judges tend to prefer punches to kicks, she does have fairly high volume. So I do worry if the fight's at range for long spurts that Joanne's going to be clocking up enough points. I am picking Lipski. I think she's going to win a decision, but I just wish I'd seen her in another or in a 3-rounder, because as I said, her last fight was 5 rounds, and maybe she was pacing herself, as people have said to me. So I would like to have seen her in a 3-rounder just to see how she copes over 3 rounds and how her volume is. So that is my only hesitation. But she's only 24. She's a lot younger than Joanne. There's like a 9-year age difference. She's not fought for 9 months. So what we normally see with these young fighters that are out of the cage for a while is they come in and look improved. And at her age, she should be coming in looking improved. So she could come in and blow Joanne away here, and I regret not making a play. But if I'm laying money on something, normally I do like to see something first with my own eyes, if it's that she can do, if it's something that I'm doubting. So, and she's -235 now as well. She's gone away from where she sat for a while, but around -200. So I do think she will win. A lot of people are very confident in her. I do think the speed's going to be too much. I just hope she doesn't sit on the outside and allow herself to get out-volumed by Jojo. So Lipski decision is the pick. Final fight on the ESPN prelims is Donald Cerrone, moving back to lightweight, back down to 155, taking on Alexander the Great Hernandez. A lot of hype around Alexander Hernandez. From looking online, a lot of people are very confident in him here in this spot. He's a -200 favourite over the veteran Cerrone. Alex has had 2 UFC fights. He blew away Beneil Dariush on very short notice. He took the fight, blew him away in 40 seconds, vicious knockout. Then he took on in July Olivier Aubin-Mercier, where he won a unanimous decision over 3 rounds. Quite a gritty fight that was with Olivier, competitive fight. Definitely got to see more kinks and wrinkles with regards to Hernandez's game. I've got to admit, I'm not completely sold yet, like a lot of people are. He did have some trouble in that fight. He got taken down. He got reversed with a Kimura reversal. He slowed down. So I've got some question marks over Alex. I'm not as confident as a lot of people seem to be. So this is really going to be a proving fight for him to see where he really is at, because Donald Cerrone is a true veteran of the game. I do have question marks over Donald as well. I think he is getting towards the end of his career. He's nearly had 50 fights now. He's 35, almost 36 years of age. He's moving back down to lightweight as well after having a number of fights at welterweight. He's not fought at lightweight. If we're looking at his record, I think the Brazilian Cowboy fight was his last fight at lightweight, which was 3 years ago. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fights at welterweight. So I'm a little bit surprised he's moving back down to lightweight. He's 3 years older since he last made the cut, so I can only imagine the cuts, it's definitely not going to be getting any easier for him. He is susceptible to the body at lightweight as well, or he can be. But having said that, I don't expect Hernandez to exploit that. He had a decent... I mean, it was looking like at one point Cerrone was kind of done, but then he come back, he beat Medeiros. He fought Leon Edwards. I think he was really sick for the Leon Edwards fight. Now, I don't like fighters making excuses, but he seemed genuinely ill for that fight, and he took the last 2 rounds off Leon, and then he got the win over Mike Perry. So we was starting to write Cerrone's obituary, but he seems to have something left in the tank. So I'm actually picking Cerrone here. I'm not completely sold on the hype train of Hernandez. It's a hard fight to call, but minus 200 to me, I don't agree with that line at all. I think this should be a pick'em. I don't think Hernandez has done anything to deserve that hype. Blew away Dariush, who is a little bit chinny, let's be honest. And his last fight, he didn't blow me away. And we look at what Gilbert Burns just done to Olivier Mercier, tore him apart. Now, if Gilbert Burns was facing Donald Cerrone, and I don't like doing MMA maths, but sometimes it's worth looking at and applicable, and it makes things interesting. If Donald Cerrone was fighting Gilbert Burns, I would be on Donald Cerrone 100%. Like I said, there are question marks. Age, moving back down to lightweight, how much does he have left? He doesn't deal with pressure great either, and Hernandez is going to bring the pressure. But I'm not sold on his stand-up completely, and I mean, I don't remember Cerrone ever really being wrestled. I mean, maybe you could look at his record and say he's not really fought many wrestlers. He's had quite favourable matchups, and a lot of them are strikers. But if Hernandez comes out in here and just wrestles him and kind of mauls him for 3 rounds or stops him, then I'll take my hat off and be like, yeah, okay, this guy does deserve some of this hype that he's getting. But I'm not sold yet. I think Cowboy is going to come out here, and as I say, it's a tough one to call, but as a better, minus 200 on Hernandez. I'm not seeing the love for it one bit, really. I'm just not tempted to play him at all. I am tempted to play Cowboy. The one thing that's stopping me is I just don't like betting fighters that I do feel are at the end of their career. I don't know how long he's got left. I mean, he does love fighting, so he's the kind of guy that he may carry on for a number of years yet, but moving back to lightweight as well. What I always find interesting about Donald is he's always calling for the fight with Khabib. Now, Khabib obviously very heavy wrestler, so Donald's always shown a really solid ground game. So Donald seems to be really confident in his wrestling, his ground game, and that he has what it takes to beat Khabib. And then we've got Hernandez, wrestle heavy approach as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where Cerrone's at, back down at lightweight, and where Hernandez's ceiling is at. But I'm not buying into the hype yet. I'm going to go with Cerrone. I'm not going to make a prediction on how, because Cerrone can win 3 weights, he can win submission, he can win knockout, he can win a decision for me. That's the beauty with Donald Cerrone, is he's so well rounded. He does always have, well, pretty much always has 3 paths to victory, which makes him a dangerous fighter. So I could be proven wrong here. Hernandez could come out, look like the next big thing. The hype could be correct, but I'm not completely sold yet, not after the Mercier fight. I just wish Cerrone wasn't as long in the tooth, and he'd had a fight back down at 155 before this one, so I could know exactly where he's at. But I'm going to go for the upset purely based on the odds. I think it should be a pick'em, so I'm going to go with Cerrone as the underdog here to pull off the victory. Moving on to the main card, first fight is Glover Teixeira taking on Ion Cutelaba. A great fight this is going to be. I love Cutelaba, very entertaining fighter. I bet on him to beat Frankenstein. That fight was last year, I believe, and what an easy way to win a bet, like a 10-second knockout. So I'm forever grateful to that guy. I also remember getting excellent live betting odds on Cannonier when they fought. He slowed down in that fight. Cannonier took over. So I've made money betting for and against this guy. So he's been I think they're the only 2 fights I've made money off or for against him, but both times it was a substantial amount. So I do like Cutelaba. He's very entertaining. He's coming off a win over Antigulov, who's a big submission threat. What I didn't like in that fight, if we go into the negatives first, is Cutelaba was taken down easily. I mean, he did get back up quickly. I think 3 takedowns Antigulov hit. They were easy takedowns as well. I remember a couple of them were easy single legs. but he did get back up quickly, and Tagulov gassed really quick. Within a couple of minutes he was gassed. Fight before that he beat Frankenstein. He had over a year out because there was a USADA suspension. Before that he fought Jared Cannonier, came out like a beast, actually slowed down, and it's a really good fight. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. And in the third round Cannonier's actually marching him down, so it was a real entertaining fight. Before that he beat Jonathan Wilson, smashed him for 3 rounds, and in his debut he lost a fight to Misha Serkinov that it was fairly competitive at first, but I think he kind of slowed down a little bit, and Serkinov started to take over. So Cutelaba is very, very entertaining. He's very gun-ho. I'm hoping he's going to dress up as the Hulk at the weigh-ins. Love that image that he portrays. Drags around the dummy, pretending it's his opponent. Like, you know, the guy's got great personality. So he's young. I would like to see him move away though from where he's training. I think he's still over in, I think it's Moldova he's from. I think he's still training over that way. I would like to see him go to a higher level gym. Iron sharpens iron, so I would like to see him have some higher level training partners. He's taken on Glover Teixeira, who has been in the UFC for a long time now. Big staple of the light heavyweight division. Fought John Jones for the title many years ago now. It was in fact, wow, nearly 5 years ago. It doesn't seem that long, but yeah, he is getting up there in age now, Glover. He's approaching 40. He definitely looks like he's slowed down since he had a vicious knockout loss to Anthony Johnson over 2 years ago. He then beat Jared Cannonier, just hit easy takedowns on him, kept top control for most of the fight. Did get rocked at the end of the first round. Then he had the Gustafsson fight where Gustafsson was just too good for him, too fast. Knocked him out in the 5th round after taking a bit of a beating. Misha Serkinov fight, he looked slow on the feet. He managed to get the takedown, and Serkinov is a quitter, unfortunately. And he managed to get Serkinov out of there quickly, once down on the ground with ground and pound. And then against Cory Anderson, he just looked stuck in mud. Looked very slow. Cory won an easy decision, outstruck him, out-wrestled him. So, I think part of me likes Glover here because I don't think Cutelaba's got a Greco-Roman wrestling background, albeit a European one, but I don't think his takedown defence is that great. And Glover, he can employ a wrestling strategy. We've seen him do it before. He beat Misha Serkinov with it. He beat OSP with it. He beat Jared Cannonier with it. I imagine his strategy here will be try and get takedowns on Cutelaba. So I would not be shocked if he came out and managed to wrestle Cutelaba, win a decision, even get a submission on the mat. But on the feet he just looks really slow now, like he's stuck in mud. Cutelaba's fast, he's explosive, he throws with heat. I was thinking I was going to like Glover, but I watched the Cory Anderson fight and he just looks too slow now for me. He's facing a guy who's so much younger than him. I think the age difference is like 14 years. He's just got so much less mileage on him. I'm wary. It's not. I've seen a lot of people heavy on Cutelaba. He's around -200. It's not a bet I like, but at the same time, Glover's at the end of the road. Kind of much like, well, worse than Cerrone. Cerrone, I've got question marks about how much he's got left, but Glover, I honestly wouldn't. I don't think Cerrone's going to retire if he loses. For instance, I think if Glover loses his fight, wouldn't be shocked if he did hang up his gloves. Maybe he should if he does lose, especially if he gets knocked out, because he has definitely slowed down. He's not going to win the title now, that's a fact. That's kind of always been his big incentive. He challenged for the title once and then he's been trying to get back to it, but he's not going to win it. He's just slowed down too much. So because of where he's at, 39, not sure how much he's got left. He's definitely slowed down. It makes me hesitant to bet him, and I'm not going to bet him. I think Cutelaba's going to win. he did show good get-ups against Antigulov. He might need to use that here against Glover, because I don't see why Glover can't get him down, but Glover could get caught early here. So if this gets out of round 1, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I'm going to go Cutelaba, but Glover could be a live dog here. But also, just to touch on MMA maths again, and again, I don't like looking at MMA maths too often, but something that is of note here is Glover, fairly recently, he's beaten Jared Cannonier and Misha Serkinov. He's beaten both of them in the last 2 years. They've both beaten Cutelaba. So, you know, and he beat them both pretty easily. I mean, Misha was giving him big problems on the feet, but he still took him down and stopped him in inside 3 minutes. And Jared Cannonier completely dominated for 3 rounds. So, you know, that's something to take note of. But as I said, MMA maths, I don't like reading too much into it, but I wouldn't be shocked if Glover wins this fight at all. But I'm just going to have to go with Cutelaba, just because I think Glover is, well, he is towards the end of his career now. He's definitely slowed down. He's not the fighter he was. His chin isn't as solid as it was. He's had the Anthony Johnson knockout, the Gustafsson knockout. Jared Cannonier rocked him. I think I didn't actually re-watch the whole Cory fight, but I think Cory might have even rocked him. So his durability is definitely in question there. So I'm going to go Cutelaba by knockout, but I'm wary, just like with Cerrone. Well, I've actually picked Cerrone, but again, a fight where a lot of people seem confident on Cutelaba. I can definitely see how Glover can win this fight, and I wouldn't be shocked if he does. So I'm going to go Cutelaba, but I won't be betting on Cutelaba as a minus 200 favourite. Next, we've got Paige VanZant taking on Rachael Ostovich. Low-level women's flyweight fight for me. I've really not got a great interest in this fight. I don't have a great read on it either. It is a low-level flyweight fight for me. Paige VanZant, I don't really know why she's fighting at 125. I think she should be at 115. Rachael is the bigger girl here. Definitely, she is definitely a flyweight. She's definitely bigger boned. Yeah, I'm just not sure why Paige is at 125. She's left Alpha Male. She's at a different gym now. I can't recall where she is. She's got a reach advantage over Rachael here, 3 inches. I did a little bit of tape for this fight. So she lost to Jessica Rose Clark her last fight, which was around about a year ago. She broke her arm in that fight. I've heard online that she couldn't train for like the last 10 months because of her arm. So if that's true, she's only been able to train the last couple of months for this fight. So I don't know how that will affect her. I didn't like how Jessica Rose Clark got easy takedowns on her. I felt that she looked a bit undersized at 125. Like I said, she should be at 115. Before that, she had the loss to Michelle Walterson. Before that, she beat Beck Rawlins with that jump kick. She was getting outstruck up until that point. Before that, she got dominated by Rose for 4 rounds and stopped in the 5th round. Before that, she got a win over Alex Chambers, who's terrible. She beat Felice Herrig, which is a good win, but that was kind of version 1 of Felice, and I know Felice was having a lot of problems with sleep and so forth, and apparently it was affecting her performances, and she has looked a lot better in the last couple of years, so maybe there's some truth to that, but that was a decent win. She out-physicaled Felice, which I couldn't really imagine her doing now, so maybe there was some truth to her sleep stories. I mean, Paige is tough, she's gritty. I don't know how much her head's in fighting though. She's been on Dancing with the Stars. She's obviously an attractive woman. She's probably got her fingers in other pies now. She left Team Alpha Male. Yeah, I just don't really know where she's at. I don't think too highly of her either. Rachael Ostovich, I've done some tape on her. She was having a competitive fight with Montana De La Rosa, who's a decent fighter last time out. Her takedowns are okay. She's got a fairly decent shot. I watched her fight with Christine Ferreira where she was knocked out in round 3, and Ferreira stuffed a lot of the takedowns, but she was getting deep entries on those takedowns. Now, I don't know if Paige is going to be able to stuff them, because I don't think physically she's a 125. I don't think she's going to be very strong. Rachael isn't great. She's had some domestic issues as well leading into this fight, so I don't know where her head's at. It's a tough fight for me to call. I don't have a great read on it. It's lower level. Paige is probably going to want to keep this standing and try and outstrike her. She did win the third round over Jessica Rose Clark, which was stand up from the outside with a broken arm. Rachel's probably going to want to get this to the floor, but she didn't even try and take Montana De La Rosa down, which I don't know why. She was just content to stand with her. So I'm going to say Ostovich because she's the underdog, pure and simple. I've seen a few people online and so forth say that Paige is going to dominate. She's the better fighter. Look at Ostovich's record. She's 4-4. Blah blah blah. But I'm not high on either. And dog odds, I'd go with Rachael. But it's not a fight I'm betting on. It's low level women's MMA. There's a lot of question marks around both coming into this. Pass for me from a betting perspective, but I'm going to pick Ostovich just because she's the underdog purely. And as I always say, I'm a better. I think the value's on her. I think this probably should be lined as a pick'em, but I don't recommend the play. So next we've got flyweight. I don't actually know what's happening with flyweight. They've said they're getting rid of the flyweight division and they're making flyweight fights, so it's confusing me. But anyway, so we've got Joseph Benavidez taking on Dustin Ortiz, which is a rematch from 4 years ago. Now, I bet Benavidez in that fight with Ortiz 4 years ago, and I actually went back and rewatched it, but I did remember that it was a comfortable victory, and rewatching it was 4 years ago though. Benavidez basically won that he was just too fast for Ortiz on the feet, just outstruck him. Won the scrambles as well that happened during the fight. His cardio held up. Ortiz brought a tremendous pace. He was pushing forward the whole time, but his stand-up wasn't good enough, and he definitely struggled with the speech disadvantage that he had. So we go 4 years forward. Now, I can't remember the price I got. I checked how the betting line closed, and it finished Benavidez as a minus 400 favourite. In my head, I'm sure I bet him around minus 300. Now we go 4 years forward. The line's actually been coming down steadily. I think Benavidez is about minus 240 at the moment, so he is cheaper than he was 4 years ago, and rightly so. Benavidez has had that injury problem where he was out for a couple of years almost. He came back and fought in a fight he lost to Sergio Pettis, which it was a competitive fight. It could have gone either way for me. Maybe even Sergio stole round 2 and 3 with the pressure and the takedown attempts, and Sergio wasn't really getting so much off in the second and third round because Benavidez started to find his timing in terms of avoiding the counters when he was coming in to close the distance. And then last fight he destroyed Alex Perez, who was being kind of touted as the next big thing. So I'm just not sure where Benavidez is at exactly. The Sergio fight, he might have been just shaking off some ring rust. 18 months out of the octagon. So if he was shaking off the ring rust, he then came out and destroyed Alex Perez, who had been on a tear, been looking like a monster, next big thing. So if we was starting to write Benavidez obituary, we definitely had to pause on that after that performance. It's just hard to get a read on if he slowed down or not. He's 34 now, which is it's getting up there for a flyweight. Flyweights rely on their reflexes, their speed, and it's the first thing they lose as they get older. So he's had that bad knee injury as well. I mean, I've got to think he's, even if it's only slight, I've got to think he's slowed down slightly since he last fought Dustin Ortiz. And the big takeaway for me from the first fight was the speed difference that he had over Dustin. Dustin is, I mean, we've probably got to say he's improving. His stand-up seems to be improving. He's got 2 knockout wins in his last 3 fights. He knocked out Pereira last time out, who was highly touted. Head kick. Pereira had his glove up, but the head kick still dropped him. Followed up with ground and pound, stopped it. Fight before that, he won a very close fight with Pantoja. He basically won that with his pace and his cardio. Just managed to outwork Pantoja towards the end of the 3rd round and steal the decision. It could have gone either way. Really close fight. I remember live betting Ortiz in that fight after the 1st round at something like plus 200, plus 250, because I knew Pantoja has gas tank issues and Dustin Ortiz can go all day. And before that, he knocked out Hector Sandoval, who not the greatest fighter, so you can't read too much into that. Before that, he lost to Moreno, a fight he was in complete control of through his wrestling, got caught and got submitted. And before that, split decision win over Zach McCoskey, which is, it shouldn't have been a split decision. It was a comfortable win for Ortiz. So he does seem to be in career best form. His stand-up has improved. He switches stance now, which I don't think is something he used to do. I don't think he done it when he fought Benavidez 4 years ago. Not sure where he trains. He seems to flit around gyms. He always seems to be somewhere different. He's 30, so he's probably in his athletic prime. I've got to go Benavidez purely based on the first fight, and I just don't know if Benavidez has slowed down or not. I just can't get a read on it. This was the big thing for me. But having said that, before I watched tape, I did want to bet Benavidez, but after re-watching the first fight, even though Benavidez was in complete control, Ortiz set a ferocious pace and he was on the front foot the whole time. Now, I'm not saying there's question marks over Benavidez's cardio. He's always shown excellent cardio, but you've got to think again with the age and being a flyweight that his cardio has got to drop off a little bit at some point, and he did gas against Henry Cejudo in a high-paced fight, which is more recent. I mean, the Sergio fight, Benavidez was pushing forward the whole fight, but it was kind of all one-way traffic. He wasn't having to, like with Ortiz in the first fight, he was having to defend in scrambles and so forth, so it wasn't like he was dictating the whole fight, whereas with Sergio he kind of was, which does make it easier on your gas tank if it's just you that's pushing forward and you're not really getting much kind of resistance or being made to work overly hard. And Sergio's a counter puncher as well, so it's not like he was being backed up or anything. So I don't know why, I've just got in my head I would not be shocked in this fight if Benavidez wins round 1. Round 3 he slows a little and Ortiz manages to win round 3 with his pace and volume, and then the fight comes down to round 2. So I'm gonna go Benavidez via decision, but just something in my gut says I would not be shocked if Dustin Ortiz manages to win a very close split decision type win here through his pace, through his volume, through his relentless forward pressure. That's what he's got to do. If I'm in his camp here, I still expect it to be a speed disadvantage, but it's 4 years on. Has Joe B slowed down slightly with his speed? Has his cardio dropped off slightly? He had the layoff. He's 4 years older. He is getting old for a flyweight. You've got to be in his face. You've got to put the pressure on him. You've got to try and get him to slow down. I think you've got to concede that you're probably going to lose round 1, but just get him to slow down slightly and try and win round 2 and 3. So I'm going to say Benavidez decision, but I'm just not 100% sure that he can be at the same level he was 4 years ago. So I expect this to be a competitive fight. I think it'll be closer than the first fight. The line is dropping. He's minus 240 now, so it'll be interesting to see where it finishes on fight week. But ultimately, I am going with Benavidez, but Ortiz winning a tight decision would not shock me here. Next, we've got Gregor Gillespie taking on Yancy Medeiros at lightweight. So Gregor looks every bit the contender. I'm still waiting for him to drop to 145. I'm wondering when that's going to happen. Maybe he's not going to drop until he loses at lightweight and maybe feels that size difference, but so far he's just completely dominated everyone. Slight knock on him has been he's been kind of maybe a little bit too happy to trade on the feet, but I watched his last fight and he just went into complete wrestle mode from start to beginning, didn't mess around on the feet at all. Really liked the fight IQ, just absolutely dominated him with his wrestling. It's a ragdolled Vince Pichel for almost 2 rounds before he got the submission. He's unbeaten in the UFC. He looks very, very good, Gregor. So he's got I'd say it's a step up here with Yancy Medeiros, but the problem with Yancy is he's had so many. Well, he's had about 3 tough fights, but they're like real tough fights. He lost to Dustin Poirier. He lost to Trinaldo. I don't know how he stayed in that fight for the 3 rounds. No idea. Then he had the win over Brazilian Cowboy, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was probably KO'd in that fight a couple of times. Like, I don't know how he won that fight. He broke Brazilian Cowboy's nose in round 1, which affected his cardio, which probably won him the fight. Without that, I don't know if BC would have slowed down, and I don't know if ultimately he would have got the win. But he took a savage beating in that fight as well, and then he's coming off the knockout loss to Donald Cerrone. So I don't know how much he's got left. I think his chin's been cracked now, Yancy. Gregor, though, probably isn't going to exploit that. Now, with Yancy, we've not really seen too much of him having to defend takedowns. Now, he was being taken down by Brazilian Cowboy. Brazilian Cowboy got 2 reverse bodylock takedowns on him in round 3. He was taken down by Trinaldo and Poirier, but only after he'd been hurt on the feet, so he was on rubbery legs. So I just can't see how he's going to defend Gillespie's takedowns. So they're so good. Such a strong wrestler. I see Gregor coming out here. I think he's going to have the same strategy he had last fight. I don't think he's going to want to mess around on the feet with Yancy. Yancy's got power in his hands. Why risk it? I expect him to come out with the same strategy, wrestling straight away. I think he's going to get the takedowns when he wants them. Yancy's coming back down to 155 from 170 here. So he is going to be the bigger man, but I don't think that's going to matter. I don't think he's going to be able to stop the relentlessness of Gregor. I mean, Yancy he always has a puncher's chance, but I think he's going to get ragdolled. He's got the 1 submission loss, which was to Jim Miller. I didn't rewatch that fight, but from memory, I think Jim Miller hurt him with a body shot standing and then locked up a guillotine. So Gregor's gonna want to try and get the submission here. I'm sure he's gonna get the takedown. I'm gonna go Gregor a decision though. Don't know if he'll stop Yancy. Yancy's a tough man. I don't think he'll stop him with strikes, so he's gonna need a submission win. But I do expect Gregor to win this comfortably. A 30-27 or even a 30-26 type decision wouldn't surprise me. So Gregor to keep marching on, and I'd like to see Gregor get a real kind of top 10 fight next if he's going to stay at lightweight, or I'd really like to see him move down to featherweight and see how he does there, because I do think that's where he belongs. But I'm high on Gregor. He's minus 600 favourite, which makes him kind of unplayable now, but I definitely like him here to get the win. So co-main event is the controversial Greg Hardy taking on Alan Crowder. There's not much to say here. Okay, Greg Hardy's not beaten anyone particularly good, but man, does that guy hit hard. I'm expecting a first round demolition job here over Alan Crowder, who's should really be at light heavyweight. Yeah, he's the best opponent Hardy's fought, but Hardy, athletic specimen, very high level NFL player. He's obviously had a lot of off the field controversies. That controversy is still continuing now into his UFC career, especially being on the same card as Rachael Ostovich. But yeah, he seems like a psychopathic kind of guy, does Hardy. I watched his last fight, which was outside of the UFC, that he won with like hammer fists, sprawled on a shot, and won with hammer fists. Way was kind of riding at the top of his opponent, which just shows how much power he's got, because the guy was out cold. And so the ref stops the fight, and then if you watch the fight for a minute, literally a minute after it stopped, he's still in like this. Just watch him. He's in like this zone where he's like not realised he's won. It's like he still thinks the fight's gonna carry on, or he's waiting for the next opponent to be brought in. It's just really, really kind of looks like a bit of a psychotic episode he's in, and I genuinely am worried that this guy is gonna be pulled off by a ref one day, and he's just gonna throw the ref to one side and carry on the beat down. He definitely seems to have a bit of a screw loose. So I'm expecting, round one demolition job here. I don't need to break it down any more than that. This guy is a monster. Obviously, he's going to need to step up at some point to see where he's truly at. But he hits hard. He's a big heavyweight. He's going to be very athletic. He's at an American top team. So, I'm not going to say what I was going to say then, because it's early days, and we need to see how he plays out. But man, has he got some power. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Greg develops, and I just hope he keeps his emotions in check and so forth when he does end fights, and there isn't anything crazy that happens, because it is a genuine worry I have. So last fight on the card, main event for the flyweight title, TJ Dillashaw trying to become the bantamweight and flyweight champion. Henry Cejudo defending his 125 belt that he won against Demetrius Johnson. Quick look at the stats: 2-inch reach advantage for TJ. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. TJ averages over 5 strikes per minute. Henry's at almost 3.5. Absorb a similar amount, just under 3 basically. Henry has 35% takedown accuracy. He goes for over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. TJ 37%, so similar takedown accuracy. He goes for less than 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Both got very high takedown percentage rates, both in the late 80s, which you'd expect from Henry, of course, being an Olympic gold medalist, and TJ, who's got a very high collegiate wrestling background. So very good fight this. The big question mark seems to be around the weight cut for TJ. Is he going to make it? He fights at 135. He's got to cut another 10 pounds. Clearly, when you're a 135 pound man cutting down to 125, that's a high percentage of your body weight that you've got to lose, compared to maybe someone that's fighting at middleweight cutting down to welterweight. He's already very lean, TJ, always ripped, so there are question marks. I think he's an intelligent guy. I hope he's done a practice cut to see kind of how he feels and how he looks and so forth. He was preparing for the Mighty Mouse fight for a while. I've got to think he's been keeping his weight low. He's really put the thought into this, and I'm hoping it's not going to be an issue here. The funny thing is, everyone seems to have forgotten that Henry Cejudo used to struggle with the weight, and I think the last couple of fights he seems to have made it a lot easier than he used to. But he used to have problems with the weight as well. So I know TJ's been saying that Henry cuts more weight than him, and he walks around at a higher weight than TJ, and that may well be true. But Henry has made the cut to flyweight on a large number of occasions now, so his body will be used to it. He'll know how his body copes, what his body needs, whereas it is the first time for TJ. So there is that worry. Cejudo's been in the UFC now for 4 years. I know Henry pretty well in terms of I've bet on him in a lot of his early fights. He's someone that's really, really improved. You kind of do expect that from an Olympic gold medalist, someone who can pick up a discipline and really run with it and really improve, and we are seeing that. Going back into the early days, like the Chico Camus fight was a very competitive fight. He had the fight with Formiga afterwards that again was I don't think it should have been a split decision. I remember betting on Henry in that fight, and I was very confident he'd won the decision at the end of the fight, but it was still a very competitive fight. He got destroyed by DJ in the first fight with knees to the body. Then he had the loss to Benavidez, which was a very close fight, could have gone either way, but that was the first time we saw kind of, I would call it version 2 of Henry Cejudo. He came out a lot more aggressive, a lot more intent, and then after that fight he wrecked Wilson Hayes, looked really good in that fight. Sergio Pettis, he fought intelligently, pretty much just wrestled Sergio for the 3 rounds, and then obviously last fight he won the title against DJ. I don't think he deserved that decision. I think he got outstruck. I don't think he done enough with the takedowns. He was literally just holding DJ down. I didn't bet on that fight beforehand because I remember DJ was around -400 and a lot of people thought, oh, this is crazy, destroyed him kind of 2 years ago, and now we're getting an even cheaper price on him, and DJ is unbeatable, he's untouchable, -400 is a great price. I just had a funny feeling and stayed away from it because I'm pretty sure I threw, it's square as hell, but I'm pretty sure the first time they fought I threw DJ in a it's like a third leg of a double that I done, but this time I don't know why, but I just wasn't feeding it and stayed away. But I did live bet DJ in the course of the rematch because I thought he was going to win a decision, and I was a little nervous at the end of round 5 after Henry got that takedown in round 5 and maybe stole that round, but I just didn't think he'd done enough on top, and I thought DJ landed the better shot standing. So controversial decision there. So Cejudo has definitely improved, there's no two ways about it. We've seen improvement from him fight to fight. Is he going to have made more improvements coming into this fight? Possibly, because he does seem to be improving at a rapid rate. TJ Dillashaw, the 135 champ, coming off back-to-back wins over Cody Garbrandt. Cody kind of gave him the fight he shouldn't have done. I think he was looking for the knockout too much, traded in the pocket, and TJ caught him both times and managed to knock him out. Before that, TJ beat John Lineker, comfortable decision win, mixed in takedowns. Before that, beat Rachael Assunção, comfortable victory after a very close first fight that they had a number of years before that I thought TJ won that fight. I don't think Rachael deserved that decision. So for me, TJ's only loss since we're going back to the John Dodson fight, which I think was an early stoppage. For me, since the Dodson fight, the only fight he's lost is the Dominic Cruz fight, and even then that was such a hard fight to score. So TJ's he's a hard man to beat. If we move away from the Dodson fight, his 2 losses are Assunção, which I thought he won, and Dominic Cruz are both split decision losses. So this is a hard man to beat. Henry Cejudo's going to have to fight the fight of his life to win this. TJ's a high caliber wrestler. He's not going to be as easy to take down as DJ was. He's also, when he has been taken down, TJ has shown the ability to quickly get back to his feet, so I don't think Henry's going to have much joy keeping him on his back. So I really see this being a stand-up fight. I've mentioned how much improvement Cejudo's made and being an Olympic gold medalist, how much he's improved, and you kind of expect that from that calibre of athlete. TJ Dillashaw, for me, still has the most improved striking I've ever seen in a high level MMA fighter, I believe. I always remember kind of, if you look at his early UFC fights and then you go and watch his fight with Mike Easton, he's striking just, I mean, I know Mike Easton isn't the highest caliber opponent, but neither were his previous UFC opponents. But the difference in his striking, it just improved rapidly. He works with Dwayne Ludwig now, who's done so much for TJ. You can see what a close bond they have and the respect they have for each other. But yeah, the way his striking improved was just incredible. Honestly, I just always remember just thinking, wow, how much has this guy improved? And then he obviously beat Renan Barão after the Eastern fight, and that was a prime Renan Barão, not the kind of Barão we have today. And those 2 fights with Barão were probably the main causes of Barral's rapid decline. Let's be honest. So TJ's a very difficult man to beat. Is he going to be at a speed disadvantage on the feet? He's fighting like I said, Cejudo is a bigger, I don't think size-wise there's much difference between these two, but I think Cejudo is probably going to be maybe the fastest guy he's fought. I mean, Cody Garbrandt's fast, but Cody gave him the fight he wanted by kind of trading in the pocket. What's Henry going to do? I've got a feeling Henry is going to have a granite chin. He's just got that facial structure. He's got a big head. It sounds bizarre, but I do think TJ will struggle to knock him out. I really think Henry's going to be able to take a hit. So I have to go with TJ. Cejudo has improved, but we have seen him lose in the octagon. I think he lost to TJ Dillashaw. For me, he could easily be unbeaten since the John Dodson fight, which was only his 5th pro fight and which was 8 years ago. The weight cut is an issue, so if you are betting TJ Dillashaw, maybe wait for the weigh-ins just to make sure he doesn't look real bad and that it's taken a lot out of him, because I do see this fight going 5 rounds. Cejudo can fight at a high pace for 5 rounds. He's not going to slow down, so I wouldn't want to be worrying as a bettor that TJ looks like really gaunt and skeletorish at the weigh-in, and is that going to affect his cardio going into the fight? But I have to pick TJ. I think he will become champ. But for me, I mean, a lot of the time when fighters look terrible at the weigh-in, they're okay by fight night. I mean, I can't really think of an example where someone's fought and looked absolutely horrendous, not recently. So we have to be careful not to put too much into it as well. But I would suggest waiting just to see how TJ looks at the weigh-ins, and then make a decision. But yeah, I'm going to say TJ wins a decision here. I just think he's going to have... I don't think Henry's going to be able to wrestle. It's going to be a stand-up fight. I think TJ will have too much for Henry on the feet. As I said, the speed of Henry's going to be interesting here. But I do feel... I have to go TJ. But I can see why some people are on Cejudo. It could be a competitive fight, but I just think TJ's the better fighter. I think he's a great champion. Henry's win, for me, I don't think he deserved it. And if TJ fought Demetrius, I've not thought about the fight a great deal because it was never officially announced, but my gut said I'd take TJ, especially as I think TJ was the underdog. The odds were quite close, but I think when some books put out the line, I think TJ was the underdog, and I definitely would have taken him, so I have to take him over Henry. But yeah, let's see how the weight cut goes, and I'd recommend people waiting just to see how that goes before putting money on TJ. I don't really see the line changing too much. It's held steady at around -200 for a while now, so yeah, I recommend holding off, but I do expect TJ to come away with a win here. So that's the card wrapped. Good luck everyone. As I said at the start, check out my Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. Website is prommmabetting.com. Subscription packages for the betting services available. Audio live bet coming from this show. Live bet subscription packages available, and we also have live bet and pre-bet packages combined and separate. So have a look at the site for the packages available, and I hope we have a great start. If you are a bettor, I hope you have a great start to the betting year for the first card of the year.